FlightScope Mevo Plus is the ultimate indoor and outdoor golf launch monitor and simulator. It gives you the club and ball data you need with the accuracy you demand. Mevo Plus comes with ownership of simulated golf courses for you to play and practice at home. Mevo Plus is an essential golf partner to help you improve and understand your game better. Put more purpose in your practice. To learn more and get your Mevo Plus, shop now at flightscope.com.
Yep. Got it.
Hello everybody and welcome to our webinar on the importance of face impact location. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jordan Vogler, and the man to my left needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him a good one. He's a former PGA Tour player, world-renowned coach, and it's Grant Waite. Grant, thank you so much for joining us for this webinar on face impact location.
Of course, I'm looking forward to it.
Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, go ahead and submit your questions in the comments below. We're going to be answering them at the end of the video. So before we get started, we're going to showcase how you can find face impact location within the FS Golf app. So once we go to the main home screen, if you scroll at the very bottom, you'll see this data tile. As you scroll to the very bottom of it, you'll see face impact at the very end of the data tile. So on the iPad view, just double click and you will see the face impact screen pop up at the very bottom. Another way of viewing it, at the top of the screen, you'll go to the four corners, go to club analysis, and from there select face impact, and you'll get a bigger screen that will show your lateral and vertical impact locations within the FS Golf app. So now that we know where to locate it, Grant, one of the questions is, from your early playing days, your amateur and professional days, how did you go about finding face impact and testing that before, even launch monitors were so prevalent even today?
Yeah, well, I'm a little bit older, so I grew up with a wooden driver and a steel shaft, and so there were very small heads, and the mass of that was very concentrated close to the front of the face. So if you mishit those clubs, you had some very interesting ball flights, to say the least. So there was always a saying, it was like if you hit it on the screws, which was basically how they screwed that insert into the wooden, then that was always a pretty good shot. So we could tell right away by the ball flight, and we had to do it that way. You could also feel the twisting of the club in your hands. If you hit it on the toe of the heel, you could feel it moving around. And so I grew up at a time, because of the massive amount of gearing that would happen, which I know we're going to cover later. I grew up in an era where precision was more important than speed. You had to hit the center of the face, or else you got an unusual ball flight. So we were much more concerned about hit location than a lot of the young players growing up who are more interested in speed, and they can hit a little bit more all over the face, still get a reasonable ball flight, but they still have to fight the same things. So. Yeah,
and I think that leads into my next question. You teach the world's best players on the LPGA, PGA Tour, and a wide range of amateurs. A lot of people come to you probably, and at least the amateurs, seeking distance, but one thing that really separates the top level professionals versus the average weekend warrior is that consistency of strike on the club face. And just speak more to your experience on the wide range of people that you see on a daily basis.
Yeah, so the tour professionals, obviously they're going to get closer to hitting in the center more often than most of the amateurs that I coach. And face variability, both with the direction of the face and hit location or impact location, is much tighter on the professionals. So when I'm watching their ball flights, I'm usually will have some way of kind of gauging, have my flight scope out there, and we're watching what the ball's doing. And I often ask the question, was that a centered hit? And I do that for two reasons. One, I can generally know if they've missed the center, but I want to know if they know it, right? So they'll be, oh no, that felt pretty good. And I'm like, well, actually that was a toe hit or a heel hit or whatever. So when I do this with the players, with the top echelon players, I'm trying to get a feel for the swing, and that's hitting on the toe or the heel, and I'm verifying it with usually using my Mevo Plus or my launch monitor there. So now amateurs, on the other hand, they have a real hard time, and most players do, because this is a difficult game. This club's traveling a lot with some speed to get that centered location. And I think there's a lot of times they don't realize how much of an impact the ball has on the ball flight as to what the ball does. How far it goes, how much it curves, the spin rates, all of the things. There's lots of things that go into which we're going to cover. I'm sure we're going to cover. But so with them, it's the same thing. I start asking them the question, where did you hit that? And the turf professional usually gives me a pretty reasonable answer, but the amateurs are way off. So I think face location, having something that you can measure that and you rely on the accuracy of that is vital to understand that when they're working on their swings or they're trying to get better, or understanding ball flight is a major educational piece that will help them in a big way, right? So it's not overly technical, you just kind of know where you're hitting that on the face. So I do it with everybody because spin rates, flights, and like I said, trajectories are all affected by it.
Yeah, and you know, I know everybody's big on these distance gains, and a lot of the amateurs think, well, if I only hit it further, I'll shoot lower scores. But you know, in reality, if they get more consistent where they hit it on the club face, that will have paid bigger dividends to lower scores than just chasing distance, what everybody's trying to do.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. I have a guy that I coach who's CEO of a company, and he doesn't get to play a lot, but he loves the game. So whenever he can, I try to help him, and we do some work on the range. And I'll ask him the question, for example, like how far, like your 6-iron, like, okay, well, how far do you hit this? And he'll give me a number, and I'm like 170 yards or 175 is about what he does, which is pretty good. And I'm like, okay, yep, all right, so go ahead and hit. And he'll miss-hit it, and it'll go 150 yards. And then he'll hit a good one, 175. And then he'll miss-hit one again, a little high on the face, a little low on the face, on the heel, toe, a little fat, a little thin, whatever. And the ball's going to go, this time goes 145 yards, and then it goes 150. So technically, yes, he can hit it 175 yards if everything is perfect. But if you took his average, it's actually probably about 155 yards, by losing 20 yards because of impact location and quality of strike. So it's hard, though, to say that's your average and you're going to play that's your average when you go play, because you always think, I'm going to hit, this is the one I'm going to hit it good, and it's going to be 20 yards over the green. So consistency of strike literally is going to be the determination of how you understand how far you hit the ball. I would take a few mile an hour slower and hit it in the center of the face every time than a few mile an hour faster and hit it all over the face, because you cannot control, one, the distance, and also the ball flight accuracy.
100%. And we're going to get into basically the 4 main common areas where people will try to get face impact location apart from a launch monitor. The first one is pretty common, and I know we talked about this at length, is people say, well, I don't need that. I know exactly where I hit it on the club face. I have really good feel. Well, feel versus real, feel and real is 2 different things.
Very.
I know there's been times where I've felt like I've hit it in the center of the club face, but when I have my Mevo Plus or X3C, I can look at face impact location and say, well, actually, closer to the hill. So explain why feel and real, like, it just doesn't cut it, like just guessing where you hit it.
Well, it doesn't. It's just it's a kind of a nebulous thing, right? When you actually hit a good shot, especially with a driver, or really any club, if it's the center mass of the club, which is really the sweet spot here, and the center mass of the ball match up, it's such a good feeling because it just doesn't feel like anything's happening. And sometimes with a driver, it just feels like the ball almost wasn't there. It's just such a solid square contact, and it feels great. When you miss-hit it, it has a different feel to it. And often people don't know, well, did I hit that high on the face, low on the face, on the heel? What's going on, right? It's very hard to judge. So you need a feedback so you can start equating what a feel is off of that. So the Mevo Plus, I use that a lot with my players, and if I'm hitting balls, same thing, because I'll be looking at what the ball's doing. I'm like, that felt pretty good, and then I can look at the face impact and know that I can match that up. So, but to think people that actually, okay, you might not have hit the center. How far off the center? Was it a little bit high, a little bit low? Was it a little to the right, a little heel or toe, or whatever the case may be? Is not, people aren't as good at that as they think they are. And it's a tremendous advantage to know.
Yeah, and guessing, you might think your feels are just perfect one day, but your feels and the way you are physically feeling changes every single day. So it's important to have something that will accurately give you feedback to know what you're doing. Another common area or common tool people use is spray. I've seen that early growing up as well. Oh, if you want to know where you hit it, use spray. Personally, I think this is good for indoor use. The only issue is, especially if you're using it outdoors too, you may get 1 or 2 shots you can hit out of it, then you have to reapply that spray because
Yes.
you don't know where it's accurately hitting on the club face.
Yeah.
And if you're not using a launch monitor, you're not getting any feedback to why the ball is doing post-impact to where you hit it on the club
Yeah,
face.
and outside also you're taking divots and you're
Yep.
getting debris all over that face, and so you have to clean it and then spray it again and spray. It just gets like annoying to the point where you're like, I don't even want to do this.
Yep.
So it is a way, and it is a way. A driver, for sure,
Yep.
maybe a little bit easier to do that, but you just get tired of having to do that. You keep wiping the face,
Yep.
spraying it because you have to keep doing it, and then after a while, you've got 2 or 3 hits on there. You're not sure which one was that one, right? So it can be useful, but it's okay.
And if you leave it on too long enough, it gets caked up and it's hard to
Right.
get off, and then it's everywhere. So not the best option. The next option that I've seen, you can get this at a local golf store too, is face tape. You know, face tape, you can accurately see where you hit it on the club face, but we're going to see from an example here, I hit 2 shots. My normal 7-iron carry, we're looking at roughly about 172, and spin is close to 6,000, 6,500. Not bad for me.
Yeah,
but
that's good.
as we see with face tape, we could see spin dramatically
Yeah,
drop
it's-
down, and carry distance went a little bit far because there is something that's in between the golf ball and the club face. So will you accurately see where you hit it with face tape? Yes, but if you're wanting to see what it does in turn to distance, you're going to get accurate. You're not going to get the most accurate readings to what you're seeing.
100%. And basically what you're describing, and it's true, when you get something between the club face and the ball, it does reduce, going to reduce your spin, and therefore it's kind of like a mini flyer to some degree. So the ball doesn't curve quite the same. It's going to carry it a little bit, maybe a little bit further. The spin rate's down, doesn't look like it flies properly. You don't have the lift and drag on the ball to keep the ball so the flight, everything looks a little bit different.
Yeah.
Again, it's a tool that you can use, but it's not really the best tool, but you will see impact, and you can say, yeah, okay, but once again, the ball flight's not necessarily reflecting what that impact says, right? So again, it's a tool, but it can be useful, but it's clearly not the best way to do it.
And before we get into the final step of what people go to use to understand face impact location, people will ask, well, how accurate is Mevo Plus? Well, if you could see from here, I hit it just slightly high off the hill, just ever so slightly. You know, we want it more center, obviously. And if we look back at the Mevo Plus, what it captured with face impact location, pretty spot on.
Boy, that's just dead on, isn't it?
Dead on. So
Yeah.
you can have full confidence that when you are practicing, you're getting accurate data that you can trust.
Yeah,
the final area is, you know, there's other companies that do offer face impact, but you have to put stickers and dots all over the club.
it's
But the
annoying.
problem with that is, you know, people might get lazy and not take it off. But if you're in tournament play, you're getting dinged for a penalty. So
That's right,
not
and
only
that has happened.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
has just as recently, I think, as 2023, one pro got disqualified for
Yep.
leaving it on.
Yeah.
And it's a burden to have to take that off every single, you know, iron and club that you want to use for when
Yeah.
you're practicing. So
Yes.
that doesn't cut it
Yes.
as well.
Yeah.
So what we get at is it's very imperative that you have a launch monitor with accurate data that you can trust as where you hit it on the club face, and to have data back up what you are actually seeing. So Mevo Plus X3C with face impact, best of both worlds.
Unequivocally, and I use it all the time. So I think it's a feature that's undervalued.
Yeah.
I think people just hit a shot and then they just look at what the ball's doing, look at the data and face and part, which is important, but what the ball's actually doing is not only just face and part, but your impact location is very, very important. So I think it's underrated, and when you have something that can measure this very accurately and you can trust in that, that's a big part of understanding ball flight.
Yeah, and if the pros are doing it the best and they're so consistent with where they hit it, I think it's imperative for every golfer can benefit from having this sort of feature that can help them progress and get better, and ultimately see them their scores start to lower.
Well, yeah, but not only on ball flight, but
Yeah.
if you're trying to make changes in your swing,
That too.
and you can see where you're hitting
Yeah.
this, what is this doing to my impact, right? Is it helping me? Is it not helping me? Again, this is all diagnostic tools that's just going to, try and get that learning curve to be a little bit better. So
100%. Now that we covered all the basics of, you know, the differences of how people, you know, track face impact location. When you are teaching, when you are coaching, what are the main parameters that you're looking at that ties directly to where you strike it on the club face will have a direct impact as far as, is it spin, gear, like smash, carry, like what are you looking for?
All of it.
All of it.
So it's not a short answer here, right? Okay, so all of the above, what you just said. So you can have a face path relationship that you would think, okay, the ball's going to draw, for example. The face is kind of a little bit right, a little bit left of a rightward path for a right-handed golfer. You would think ball's going to start here and draw. You did all of that perfectly, but you missed the location, hit location, and for example, hit it on the heel. And suddenly the ball flight is different than what you would suggest that face path. So if you know that, and you say, oh, that was on the heel because you've got the data there to show you, you would understand that as a general rule, if you're going to hit it on the heel, it's just not going to curve as much. In fact, it may even curve the other way. And this is where it gets confusing for people, is that they feel like, oh, that face pass was good, but the ball's going the other direction. And then they start panicking like, oh, okay, well, maybe none of this makes any sense, right? But it does because of the fact that of the hit location. Same thing with spin rate. So one is curvature, and is the ball acting reflectively to that face path relationship? Then we're going to have, which I think depending on the club, but all clubs have a specific spin rate that's going to work with them. So I look, and especially the driver, you immediately look at what's going on in the driver. You'll see some spin rates really change. So if I hit it on the toe, it tends to be the spin rate will come down, and the ball will curve more from right to left. Whatever the face path is, it will have more right to left look to it, or straight. In terms of what the face path doing, but it will have more left to it. And the same thing on the heel, the spin rate goes up, and then it has more left to right curve to it. So the smash factor, which is just a transfer of energy from the club to the ball, gets really affected by this, and more so than what people, I think, really truly understand. There is a drop of that efficiency, so drop in ball speed, changes in spin, so that's now affecting what the ball's doing too. So when you start looking at all of those things that goes into the major components into ball flight, hit location is vital to get the most efficiency out of what you're doing. Now, having said that, I would say that even working with like tour pros, that most shots have you're just not going to hit dead center every time. So it's how far from the center, both vertically and horizontally. So high on the face, low on the face, left or right on the face. That all has different effects to what's going on. And the tour pros, when you watch that, when you watch the performance drop, sometimes it's not a lot because they're not missing the center of the face. But when you do see shots that are enough off the center, and doesn't have to be a lot, but it's enough off the center, you see such a drop in performance. So I often argue the fact that, we got to get you into the center of the face is equally important, or sometimes even more important than getting a face path, because you got to have that too, but you're going to face path correct and mishit it, and the ball's going to do something completely different, right? So I think that's really important for the people to understand, is that when I'm coaching, it's all about contact. I was coaching this morning with one of my players, and we were doing a lot of discussion about this contact. Like everything I do is get contact really good, this face location really good, and then keep adding speed to that, and then see what happens. And so it's for me, I think it's probably the number one priority for players, including amateurs, because if you miss hit it, there's just who knows what's going to happen, right?
Yeah, we touched on smash factor a little bit. I like how you said it's all about efficiency. I think that's one of the best ways you can tell how efficient you are swinging based off smash factor. So far as like a driver, a 6-iron, for example, what are the tour averages that we should be, as amateur golfers, striving to achieve to?
Yeah, so with the driver, you're trying to get as close to 150, 1.5, right? So what you're thinking is that transfer of energy from the driver is going at some speed, and the ball's going to come off some speed. And so that transfer of energy, if I'm swinging at, I don't know, let's say 100 miles an hour, I want to be able to get that ball speed. It should be close to 150, something like that, right? So we would say that that's 1.5 or 150. So that would be like in a perfect weld. So I always look for smash factor as an indication of, one, how close to the center I'm hitting it, and then the transfer of energy. And when you start looking at 6-irons, you're not going to get that higher number, right? Because on the driver you have the coefficient of restitution, the face comes in a little bit, the ball comes off. So you're going to have a drop. Offhand, I'm not actually sure what you're looking at, probably 142, something like that. I think 43 is a reasonable number, I think, with a 6-iron. And that's just simply because when you have the collision with the iron with the ball, you're not getting any trampoline effect. It's just simply coming off the face. And so but again, with an iron, what we're trying to do is we have some distance, which the driver, you can have variability in distance, and it's okay. Like I hit this, tour player may hit this one 300 yards and the next one 290. That 10 yards isn't a big deal. It's still in the fairway. It's just 10 yards long. I slightly mishit it. You take a 6-iron, you got to carry that bunker, you carry the water, and you mishit it, and you lose that efficiency, and next thing you're in the water, in the bunker, or over the green, or whatever the case may be. So it becomes very important, again, when we look talking about scoring here. Scoring is consistency in this game, so consistency of hit location or quality of strike. Both of those things are very, very important in order to be able to put the ball kind of where you want it to go. No one's got complete control of the ball, both in directional and distance. But if you keep your pattern pretty good, because of consistency of hits there, you're always going to play better golf.
Yeah, well, I think we touched on this earlier. Let's talk about gear effect too.
Yeah.
I know there's probably a lot of people asking, what is gear effect in general, and does it play a huge part in the woods, in the irons? What's the difference? So I got my driver here, so if you can give us just a really good example of what gear effect is.
Yeah, so look, we have the center of the driver, and it's really the center of mass of the driver is kind of somewhere back here. So just a little discussion on this, right? So MOI was moment of inertia, right? We want to be able to control that so it's not twisting a lot. So the more you send the center of mass back here, when you start getting from the heel to the toe, this area back here, the further back it is, the less it kind of wants to rotate around that center of mass, right here. If it's right on the face and you hit it, it's going to rotate. So we know in physics for a fact that if you put a force anywhere other than through the center of mass, it causes rotation. So if I hit the center of mass on a driver like this, it tends to just go this way, straight. You're not going to have twisting of the face. So, but when you hit outside of it, in this case on the toe, it's going to make the toe rotate about the center of mass. So there's a center of mass, I hit it out here on the toe, it wants to rotate around. Same thing on the heel, it wants to rotate the other direction because you're missing the center of mass. So you say, oh, okay, if the face goes like this, I'm just going to hit it to the right. Well, we have bulge, which is across here, and roll. So when you do this, the face is not flat with a driver. It's just not flat. So that the toes set back this way in the heel for a very specific reason. So when I make impact, the toe is actually pointed with let's say the face is dead square to the target, the toe is actually slightly pointed to the right because of that bulge there, right? So it's going to start a little to the right, but we need that because the gear effect, if we hit the ball like this, this is rotating about the center of mass, but as it does it, and we grab this ball here, excuse me, long way down there. Okay, so we're going to hit the center of mass. The club's going to rotate this way, about that way, and the slippage on the ball plus the center of mass of the ball, it's actually got like a gearing, like this, like a gear. It rotates this way as this is rotating that way. So it hits, the ball comes off, I'll put it like this, starts rotating that way as the face is rotating this way. So now that's a draw spin. Okay, so it's called gear effect, and they call it gear because it's like two gears going opposite directions, right? So this is rotating that way. Oh, excuse me, I got it. So that means when you look on your Mevo Plus and what you're using, it's going to read as if the face is pointed more to the right than it actually is because the center is actually a little straighter. But we need that once again because we know it's going to draw as a general rule because of gear effect. So it starts it right and brings it back. That gives you more chance to hit it towards your target. So when you start reading the numbers, you're like, oh, well, the face is actually pointed in the same direction as the path. That should be a straight shot. However, the gear effect, because you're tilting the spin axis of the ball sideways, so it's going left, so this ball will actually start to the right and draw back. And it's a very, very important thing with the driver because of where the center of mass is. We need that. So that when they design drivers, they don't have a curve to the face just to make it more difficult. They're actually doing that to make it easier and more playable, right? So it starts to the right and draws back. Now, if we go the other way and we hit it on the heel, the face rotates this way, right? And so the ball slides off the face that way and it curves back the other way. Again, it's a gear. That's why they call it gear effect. So again, now the heel is pointed more to the left. So the ball starts to the left, which you're going to need to if it's going to cut or work to the right. So now it's got some kind of playable start line and work. So it's just not like way off the line. So this is a very important part. Now, people just think of gear effect as just horizontal, toe, heel. But there's also vertical gearing that's going on, whether you hit it low. Same thing with gear effect here. You hit it low, the face rotates down. So you would hit it here, it rotates, the face is going to go like this. The ball's going to go this way, and it's actually going to spin more. So now you've got a low hit. The ball spins back. You, instead of hitting a driver at, say, 2,500 spin, you're now hitting it at 3,000 or 3,100. So you're going to lose some distance. It's going to spin more, and so it may curve more. And the same thing when you hit it high. You hit it high, the face actually rotates back, which means it's going to launch higher. Just like when you hit it low, it's going to launch lower. It's going to launch higher, but because you're hitting above the center of mass of the club, it actually spins less. So you can have a dead perfect face to path ratio, but hit it low or high on the heel, and you're going to start losing efficiency as well. So when you go through it, it starts sounding impossible to hit a good shot, but it's not, because the clubs are so forgiving. It's just how far off do you hit it is how much the gear effect is happening, right? It just goes. Now, most drivers, performance-wise, if you hit it slightly on the toe and slightly higher, you're not going to lose as much as you do on the heel and low. You tend to lose more performance, and that's just a fact of the toe here and higher on the toe is just a little bit more forgiving with the center of mass of rotation, because where the shaft's coming into the
And some people may be asking, you know, is the same effect happen with irons, or because the center of gravity is just so closer to the face, it's not going to have that same
so
effect?
again, you know, what I was saying earlier, that the center of mass with a driver is like way back here somewhere. Well, as far back as they can go. I mean, you know, wherever they set their center of mass. So again, the moment of inertia is much higher. So moment of inertia is just resistance to twisting, right? So it has it controls that more. You know, when they start shifting, when the center of mass gets up here, it's just hitting about the center of mass. The side here, it's just a lot more twisting that goes on. So when you go with an iron, though, you think, oh, well, then it's going to have more. Well, actually, it doesn't. The center of mass is like higher up here towards the face. But because it's also a straight surface, like here, and you've got the ground interaction, all that stuff, you will have some gearing that you've got going on, but it's not at the level that the driver is. So it's usually less, but my players, for sure, if they hit it on the heel, you can see the face rotate a little bit like this. Ball starts a little further left because of the rotation of the face, but it's not doing it because there's a curve to the face. So it will start a little bit further left, and it does want to kind of be a little bit more spinny and kind of go to the right, because there is still a center of mass that's up here on the iron. So.
And again, that's why it's so imperative that you are using a Mevo Plus or an X3C in your practice sessions to get that immediate feedback and accurate data to help coincide of what that ball flight is doing and where you strike it on the club face. Because again, the 2 and 2 go hand in hand. So
exactly right. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Yeah, so there's two things that this does. It's like when you're working on your game, I'm working on something. Am I getting the face path right? Am I getting the angle of attack right? Am I getting the spin lock right? Yep, great, we're doing that. But it's also telling you, am I hitting it in the center of the face? Which is very, very important for the consistency of what you're trying to do. So you need some way and some feedback to that. Because you could be doing everything right, missing the center of the face, and the ball's not going correctly, and you think, oh, it's not working. Well, yeah, actually it is. You're getting the face path, angle of attack, all that stuff is correct. Ball flight's not reflective of it. It's just because you may not be hitting the center of the face at the moment, because when you try to make a change, sometimes it's hard
Yeah.
to get all of that right. But you go, yep, okay, I've got the general here. Now I got to figure out how to get to the center of the face, which could be lots of different ways of doing that.
Well,
reasons
awesome.
for that.
Well, we're going to have Alec come in and hit some shots for us. I'm going to go to the main screen. I'm going to change clubs. He's going to be using a 6-iron. I'm going to go back to the main view on here so we can get face impact location pulled up. And we're going to turn on the heat map, so all you'll have to do is hit 3 shots, and you'll be able to understand where exactly you hit it on the club face, and a nice heat map will show up.
Perfect. Oh, nice looking swing.
Where they're hitting on the club face, where does your mind go in the initial process of them when they're hitting shots? I know you're listening for an audible sound because you can tell, well, that sounds like it was off the hill, but what's this process that you're currently going through?
So initially, when I first start working with someone, I'm looking for what their tendencies are, right? So I'm looking for pattern. Any individual shot doesn't really matter to me because every shot's slightly different, but I'm looking at the group as a pattern. So what I do like, what we have here, when we put up the 3 shots, you're going to be able to show, here's his tendency, right? So I definitely look at tendencies. Are they heel hitters, toe hitters? Then I can start kind of looking at the other things as well as what could possibly be causing that. So a pattern, in golf, we're always looking for patterns, not any individual shot, because any individual shot, you could hit it on the heel, the toe, the center. But if you hit, in this case, we're going to hit 3, and he's a good enough player that would say 3 balls is going to tell us what his pattern is. So yeah, I'm definitely looking for that. All right, one more. That one?
That's a little
A little off the toe. Well, the good news is it's very consistent. Yep. So let's have a look here, and we can see here by just the spray on here that he definitely is over onto
pretty spot on.
Yeah, onto the toe, and we just look up, and that's pretty much showing exactly where it is. We'd say the center is here, and we would say good. So I would say that overall is really, really good. His speed's good, for sure. Distance is very good. If we could get him in the center, he might go a little bit more. So now you can start looking at, just in terms of what would you do with a player like this. So the first thing is I would start looking at some of the other parameters, the face, the path, angle of attack. And if all of that's pretty good, then we might have a fitting issue more than we might have anything else. Because fitting comes into this, right? You can be making really good swings, face path good, angle of attack's good, everything looks good, but have a misfit in terms of the lie angle, the shaft, and that could be moving his impact over to the toe.
Yeah, and that was another question I was going to ask. You know, where do you make that decision of, okay, is it a swing pattern we need to change, or is it a fitting issue, a loft and lie issue? Where do you go about making that distinction?
Yeah, well, exactly. So I just start looking at the numbers, like, oh wow, his angle of attack here is good. His path number could be good. The face angle, you know, in terms of face to path is good. Spin loft looks good. All of these things look pretty good to me. Then it would be like, okay, we got a fitting issue when we have anything else, because everything's good, but he's catching it on the toe.
Yeah.
Now, if we've got face path issues and we got maybe some angle of attack issues or whatever, then we can say, yeah, okay, let's adjust the swing first, and then let's kind of look at that. So if we look, for example, let's just use a little bit of his, and his launch angle is pretty good. Smash is 146, so this is pretty high. This is pretty good, even though he's hitting on the toe. So I would go straight to those other variables and just have a look at them.
So a couple people might be asking, I might be constantly striking it off the toe or heel or vice versa. What are some ways where we can move that strike location from toe to center or heel to center?
Yeah, so generally, this is a general rule, and not seeing his other data. I have, I'm like a slight toe hitter in myself and overall. So for sure, you can play if it's just a little bit. And most, like I said earlier, most players that I get performance out of the driver tend to be slightly on the toe. So if his ball flight's all good and he's hitting it slightly on the toe, then I would just try and adjust the club to get it there. Now, in terms of, and again, this is a general rule, most of the time when, and I don't know your swing at all, but as a general rule, most people who hit on the toe, they have a little bit of throw, and it's throwing the toe and the club towards the ball. I'd be looking at their release pattern a little bit. Then also, from down the line, I'm starting to look at how much they're moving their body around, if they're standing up, and then throw, are they kind of tilting back? I start looking at the things that I'm looking for in a golf swing that's going to start moving the center of mass or the center of the golf club from their hands at address. It's in some relationship, and they address it in the center, and they come down, and this is moving over in this direction. There's something that's moving in that direction. So I start to look at the variables that I would. Sometimes if a player is on the heel, it can be just simply, I would have their ball here, and then I put something when they get set up like this, and I put it so that it's right on the edge of the ball like that. And I do this especially on wedge play, chipping, but also long shots, and say, okay, we got to try and get the center, you can't hit this ball here. And intuitively, they start going from the heel, and most of the time the heel is they're standing up and they're going out, and the center mass is going presented out from inside out to the ball. As a general rule, you put a ball there and they immediately start straightening out their swing, or presenting the center mass of the club or the sweet spot of the club. So you can do little tricks like that. That's very easy to do in terms of on the range if you're heel hitting. And then what you do, if it moves it to the center, then you just kind of pay attention to what's going on, and it's usually the pressure in their weight or the tilts of their bodies kind of moving that. And I look at that. So that's a way to do it. When it's on the toe, you can't really do that. You can't really, you can put, I have done the same thing over here, something that's not a ball, but something you get like a tee or something, so if you hit it, it doesn't matter, and say, okay, I keep coming in, and I'm hitting it on the toe, so the club's moving this way a little bit. I put some tees here or something that I hit, it doesn't really matter. And intuitively, as they're coming in this way, they start going over to the center to avoid this over here.
Yeah, and another question.
It's just a little simple little thing without looking at a swing.
And another question, somebody might be asking is, how do we gamify this? How do we actually put this into practice to change that? I think that's a good drill that people can start implementing, is if you're hitting it off the heel, placing that golf ball on the toe to encourage, well, probably vice versa, to encourage that strike location to move it. Is there some other ways or other drills that you can recommend that, people that are wondering or trying to practice and improve that strike location that they can use indoors or outdoors?
Yeah, well, again, it's going to be very specific to the player's swing. It's hard to just give a general drill. These are little ones that you can play, but whatever object you put here, make sure you can hit it and it's going to be okay. For 7 years, for example, I know when I played on tour, I played on tour for about 13 years, but on 7 years of that, I watched Vijay Singh hit balls with a bottle of water right here sticking up, and then a alignment stick here, because he would tend to come in and hit out this way. So he just kept going, trying to have so he got straighter here, and then went around to the left a little faster. So you put those kind of things are very specific to the player. If I was to look at, can we look at a little bit on his face path here?
Of course.
If we can just move that, if you don't mind, just so we can see. This is a good example. Okay, so his path Here we go. So his path is 3.7 to the right. So he's definitely not hitting the toe because he's cutting across the ball this way and getting the club over there. So his path is actually going out to the right. And then his face is pretty straight. So it's almost at the target. Face to target is 0.9.
Yep.
So he's going to start this ball fairly close to the target and then draw it over to the left. So that just means when he's coming down, he's got a little, I'd work a little bit on the pressure on the ground with him, and he has a little bit where the club face is getting thrown at the ball just a touch, right? So I would start to say, okay, here's how we're going to start working on some things on the ground, how you move the your pressure around. So he's going out enough. 3.7 is a little bit too high, and I think what's happened is he goes out and then he's throwing the club this way to try and get the ball to come back. So I would start working a little bit on that kind of stuff.
So you recommend with your launch monitor, Mevo Plus X3C, if you are looking at face impact location, to really focus on the club path, face to target numbers as well.
Yes, you want to do them all together.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like you would say, oh, this is a nice little draw swing. He's got 3.7, which is on the high side in terms of path, but that face hit and the face being so square to the target and hitting it on the toe is telling me that he's getting the toe to throw to the ball a little bit. And it could be because his pressure's going out. It could be a little inside here coming down. I'm not sure. I'd have to kind of spend more time with it, right? Okay.
Alec, thank you so much for hitting those shots for us. We're going to
end.
Yeah,
that was great. It was very consistent. You know, consistency is great in golf.
Exactly.
But we want to be consistently in the center rather than kind of out up towards the toe.
That's why this is just a beautiful game. You know, you're
game.
always trying to chase perfection, but I've always learned you're never going to fully get there.
No, exactly right. And I would say that I have some amateurs that are pretty consistent on certain things that they do. Like I have a couple of amateurs that when I first came to me were hitting pretty big slices, and they had a pretty consistent on their path. It was like 6-5, 6 to the left. They're going pretty hard over here to the left. Well, that's consistent, but it's not really what we want. So there's a combination here of consistency of what you're doing in the right way. And if I was to put you know, a tour player up there, they're going to be very consistent on their path, and their face is going to have less variability. Whereas amateurs sometimes can have the same path number, very consistent with that, but the face is all over the place and the impact's all over the place and the variable ball flights. So.
Yeah. Well, let's end this webinar with a few questions that were submitted. First question is, does shaft length affect impact location? Shaft length.
Length, yes, 100%. So this is where it gets into the fitting side of stuff. And I'm first to admit I'm not an expert in that, but I definitely have my players. We are consistently looking at their swing mechanics, their face path relationships, all these things that I look at, the angles of attack, spin lofts, all this stuff. Are they delivering this club correctly? And if all of this stuff is correct and they're just not getting performance, then we go on to the fitting side. So length of shaft is a big deal. So for example, with Victor Hovland, I started when I was working with him. He plays a 45 3/4 inch driver, so it's pretty long. When he came out of college, he was actually under 45 with the driver, and so I was like, oh, okay, this is pretty long, and people want to go long as they can because it helps with speed and all this stuff. So I'm like, oh, I would like to test something that's just a little bit shorter because he's having a little bit of trouble catching too many balls. A little bit on the toe, a little bit on the heels, and more face variability than when we started. There was some swing stuff that he was doing, but there was also, okay, let's look at the club as well. And so he was like, okay, great. I talked to the manufacturers. We needed something a little bit shorter. So what they did was they went back to what he did in college. So they shortened it by 3/4 of an inch, and when he got up, he just couldn't hit it at all because the length was such different than what he's used to. You're better to go in 1/4 inch segments and say, yeah, let's just go down 1/4 of an inch, maybe half, then after that another 1/4 of an inch. So shaft length is a big factor here because it's distance you are from the ball, it's how far you're setting up. The center of mass of the club's now further from your hands or closer based on the club. And then also what the club's doing in terms of drooping and then lead deflection. There's a lot that's going on there. So yes, it has a huge factor. And when you're swinging it, if it gets too long, it's like your body can start moving all over the place because the further away it gets, the kind of more heavier the club kind of feels to you because it's further from the rotating body. So shaft length is very important. And then all the other stuff is the you know, the droop and the flex and the torque, all of that stuff is involved.
I would say it's very imperative for everybody to get fit as well. You know, just buying
Yes.
off the rack stuff,
It's hard.
yeah, you're probably going to screw up your swing and all other variables that come into play.
Yeah.
Get fit.
It's worth it.
It's worth it.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
definitely won't hurt you.
No, it won't. It's definitely worth it.
The next question is, what are some common causes of toe impact? I constantly find the toe of the club.
Okay, so I see this a lot, and with most of my players, very few are kind of out on the heel. And what I was saying earlier, most of the time it's because they're throwing the club this like their body will stop and they throw the club at the ball like this to get the club down to the ball. Now, sometimes that could be because they're a little bit steep, they back out and then they throw the club to the ball. I see that a lot. With amateurs, they come down, let me grab a club and explain this. This is a general rule again, because I have to see everyone specifically. But a lot of times when the club comes down and it's like they're pulling the club down like this, and if they keep going, it's just so down and across, it's unplayable. So people get like here, and then they back out of it, the club lowers like this, it rotates down, and then they rotate and throw the club at the ball. That's throwing the toe towards the ball.
Yeah.
So I see that a lot. That's common for it. The other one would be, there's two of those, two options, and one's actually a little bit on the opposite side, is people sometimes go up, and they just keep going this way, and then they pull the club across themselves, and then hit it out on the toe. Usually that's a plane or what the club shaft is doing through here. This one you see a lot, but I also see the better players that tend to go a little steep like this, then they back out of it and throw it like this, and they catch it on the toe.
That first motion that you did described my dad perfectly. we have a joke, he likes to split wood in his free time. We call it the wood chopping swing.
Well, that will get it out there for sure.
The next question is, Grant, any drill recommendations to use with Mevo Plus if you're struggling with heel contact on the driver?
So heel contact,
Yep.
all right. So this is a little bit more unusual. I don't see necessarily a lot of heel contact with people, but almost unequivocally that means that the center mass of the club, as you're coming into impact, is going out towards the toe this way. Now, even though the path may read left, they could be coming in, standing up, and the club's still going like that out towards the ball, so that heel goes like this way. So I said, what I told you earlier about, you can put something down, and also make sure that's just tees or something or a head cover, not even a head cover, because that can kind of catch that, but something here that if you hit it, it's not going to be a big deal, right? So heel contact, you're going to go over this side. You know, if someone's catching them on the heel, you put it on this side, and you hit here and say, okay, because if I go on the heel, I'm shifting the club slightly out this way, and I'm going to catch this here. So if you put a little object on the outside here and you hit, as you come down, you're definitely going to want to move this direction. So you're going to maybe turn, you're going to push the ground a little bit different, just kind of hit some shots and feel it. What am I feeling when that happens? And that's usually, I will do that and ask the player, what do you feel? They may feel, well, I just feel like a lot of times they'll say, as I'm coming into the ball, I just feel like my hips stay back a little bit more as I rotate through, which is a really nice feel. So do that to kind of get the feel of it. Heels definitely, as a general rule, is the sweet spot's going out this direction. Like if you took a Rory McIlroy, he hits balls at times, hits balls on the heels, and they kind of stay out to the right because he's so far at times from the inside, and swings out and catches balls on the heel. So this is a really good one. Also, without seeing anybody swing, which makes it a little bit more difficult because there's lots of ways they can do this. Just look at the pressure on the ground. If you're catching on the heel, sometimes your weight can be going out onto your toes and going underneath you like this, and it just shifts it out a little bit.
Yeah, and this isn't a question somebody submitted, but early extension is talked about a lot, and that plays. Give us a brief example of what early extension is, where that causes primarily where you're going to strike it on the club face. With early extension, some people might be asking, well, is there any drills that I can help eliminate that early extension in my swing?
Great question, right? So early extension, So if we think about it, we're bent forward some amount at address, our upper body. We're not standing straight up and down. We're bent forward. So when we bend forward, our heads are this side. It weighs 12, 13, 14 pounds, right? Something like that. So if I just stay straight up and down, I bend forward, I'm going to fall over. So we tend to flex our knees and throw our butt back as a counter to what's going on with our head. So we have this angle that we're at address. So early extension, and they call it early extension because we are going to extend on our swing on the way down. But early extension means I get to the top and I start driving with my right hip, right leg, hips underneath you too early. So when they do that, I'm going to back out of this, and then I've got to throw the club down to the ball. So that's early extension. And that can make this hit location very variable. So when we think about it, our spine actually is on the way down, is extending up, but we don't notice it because at the same time, we're right side bending as we're extending up, and we're rotating so we get to impact. So all of those things are happening, extending, right side bending, rotating, and I come to impact, and I'm something like this, okay? So from down the line, that would all look like this. The inclination of my spine stays the same. So early extension is usually too much push off the right side, right hip pushing too quickly this direction. So what we need to do is, and most of the data we see with really good players, they get to the top, the left shoulder actually works down and forward, then they level out, and then you do have that extension piece. So I'm going like this, I'm actually extending like that, but because I'm rotating it and I didn't do it early, I'm turning as I'm extending. So you see the extension, this part from down the line, this extension part, you'll see it here extending up. Early extension means you're going to send it this way, and it means your upper body's going this way. It causes you to right side bend too early as well, and now you're going to bottom out, and then again, people throw the club at the ball. So that's what early extension is. It's probably, because the ball's teed up with a driver, you can do a little bit of that and still be fine, but you cannot do that with an iron because the low point's forward of the ball. So we would say that early extension, my experience with players that do it, is a really difficult thing for people to be able to get consistent contact on the ball. It's just very difficult.
Correct.
And I've seen some really, really good tour players struggle when they start early extending, usually because they're pushing too hard too early off of the right hip. It's going out, and right knee, right femur going out too fast.
So the final question we have is, does shaft Y angle affect face impact?
Yeah, 100%. That's where the fitting comes in. So, you know, you can be, and as I work with players, even my tour players, LPGA tour players, you know, if your lie angle starts getting too upright or you're getting too flat, this club is kind of drooping down, it's flexing, and it's going into lead deflection, which just means at impact, because the club is coming down, especially with the driver here, the handle's slowing down so the club can rotate, because the hands are going whatever speed they're going, 25 miles an hour maybe, let's just say, or 22 miles an hour, whatever it is. This club can be going 120 for some of these guys. So that means this is slowing down really quickly and this is speeding up to catch up. So as this is slowing down, this is actually trying to rotate backwards, because if this rotates, this end's going this way, this end's going that way. So when you do that, it goes into lead deflection. And it's also drooping down. Droop is this direction downward, right? So the club's doing all of this that's going on. Okay, so we know, plus she's got a little bit of twisting and torquing on the shaft. So a lot of stuff going on here. But again, it makes it sound like it's impossible, but it's not, because it's already been factored into what's going on in terms of golf swings and so forth. Now, if you're making nice swings and this lie angle's too upright, as a general rule, when you go too upright, goes this way, the face starts going to the left. You just put this on here, it goes up, starts going to the left. And if it's too flat, it starts going over to the right. So it's going to affect where the face is at impact, but also as it droops down, how it's interacting with the ground, and therefore the ball flight's now getting affected by it. So lie angle, again, this comes back down to the fitting side. If my players are swinging pretty good and the ball looks weird, it's not reacting good, it's hitting the center, but it's hanging to the right or curving too much to the left, we immediately go and start looking at the lie angles. And there will be at times, as their swing changes a little bit and gets to get a little bit better, we start changing the lie angles and the loft accordingly. So it's extremely important. If you start changing your swing, you feel like you're swinging better, the face pass good, starting to hit closer to the center of the face, but the ball flight is still starting left or right or not quite right, check your lie angles, and then you do a fitting. I encourage everyone to do it.
Exactly. I think the main things that we learned from today's webinar is get fit and also have a accurate launch monitor like a Mevo Plus with face impact that you can get accurate impact location on the club face and accurate data to back up what you are seeing, either indoors or outdoors.
Yes, and a lot of things I'm saying sounds complicated because of what's going on, but this makes it simpler because you just know.
Correct.
Yeah, that's the whole point of it, right? Otherwise, if you don't have it, what variable am I dealing with? I don't know because there's so many variables, but in this case, this gives me a way to navigate through that to what's actually important and then work your way from there. So I would encourage everyone to have one if they're, if they're really serious about playing. It's the most, affordable unit that's out there that's going to give you all of this information. So, and we know the data's right. I mean, we proved it.
Exactly.
We've proved it over and over again.
Exactly. Well, Grant, thank you so much for co-hosting this webinar. I think we are all better off and got a lot of really good knowledge from this webinar. And thank you everybody for watching, and thank you for the questions that you submitted. And check your inboxes after this webinar concludes for a special discount on how you can get face impact location. So thank you for watching.